Okay, so I want to ask you, and I'll be my own camera person here, because I want to put this up. We can tell the difference between a good presentation that we enjoy and a boring presentation. We know it when we see it. What's the difference? What do you think?
The tone of voice.
Okay, so we've got tone, enthusiasm. What else? What do you mean body language? Because you're right. But what do we mean by body language?
Should also send the message across to the audience. Should let them know exactly what you're talking about. It should help convey the message properly to the audience.
Okay.
Also keep them engaged.
Okay. Convey the message to the audience to keep them engaged. And sometimes our body language, instead of convey, it betrays us, right? Why? Why does it betray us? So that we're nervous, fidgeting, shifting our weight. How much communication is nonverbal? 67, 93, somewhere in there. So a lot of it, right? And of that, a lot of it comes from the face. Okay. What makes a presentation boring? We're going to get this on record. Yes. What do you mean repetition?
Like they keep saying the same thing over and over again.
So is that content or delivery though? She said repetition. What do you mean?
I would say content. Like I think sometimes when there's not enough to say about one topic, you just draw it out.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Right. I'm going to make this brief. Content. What else? What's the difference between being spoken at and spoken with?
I guess it's like a highbrow, like if they're smarter or better instead of trying to educate and
Okay, so no audience, maybe? What else?
when it's obvious that they're reading the script.
Oh, okay. So reading. So yes, if I can read it myself, let me read it myself. So don't bring me into a room, darken the lights, and then read something to me. When I could be at my own home, where it's very well lit, in something quite comfortable, and I can read it myself. And then I can pause it and play with the dog and go back, go for a run, come back. You know, you get the idea. Okay? Yes.
Filler words.
So fillers, we'll go back to body language. Fillers are hard because on one hand, you don't want to sound like a robot. And that's where scripting comes in. That's where scripting has always come in. That's where if you look at elocution and rhetoric from, let's say, like the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, before PowerPoint, people would script speeches out because they didn't want to make mistakes because of the fillers. But we also know that throwing a filler in here or there, it makes you sound more human, like, yeah, I think so, right, that sort of thing. Now, obviously, if we look at sort of generations from the 90s and later, like gets a little annoying, stuff like that is becoming pervasive. You hear it over and over, things like that, stuff like that, things like that. You hear ones that make people sound, they're power robbers, and we don't have time to do tons and tons and tons of tips and tricks tonight, but power robbers are ones where you qualify things, where you say stuff like that, or I'm sort of in a relationship. So you sort of are in a relationship. You either are or you aren't, or it's complicated, but sort of takes away the power. Sir.
Like big one where people ask
Oh.
right, and they answer right to themselves, which actually, especially for women, that one has been found to be exactly as a power robber. For
Yes.
women. That you're almost asking permission from your audience instead of being the authority on the issue
Yes.
to your audience.
So sometimes it is, he said right, like using the word right. And sometimes it is actually a power move by the speaker, whether they know it or not. And they say things, we all want what's best for America, right? Or, I'm the one who's supposed to be in charge here, right? And that's the power robber for women, especially women. And we're seeing more genderless fluctuation between speakers, but yeah, right is a big one. And you all know someone who does it. I do it sometimes with the teaching situation because I want people to agree with the concept and move on. It's not really up for debate that we know that fillers are bad, right? You know, so
I could ask, are you with me?
yeah.
Does that make sense? I did do that occasionally, but yeah, you actually probably, the other one tried to phrase it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And balance. Okay. You know what I mean? Half time I'll be like, no, I don't. You're supposed to know. Just explain it. That's why you're up there.
Yeah, you're upfront. I'll have some young students that will say nothing in a lot of words. I have a question. So, you know, this part here in the book and stuff like that, it's a little confusing because, well, you know what I'm saying, and then that'll be it. And I'll say, no, because you didn't say anything. Yeah, that's hard. What else makes like we know the difference? Yeah.
Is this between one centers on monotone?
Monotone. Okay, so we've got back here. We're running out of space for our video. Monotone. So how do we practice somebody who's monotone? This is the third piece. We're gonna fix all these things. I mean, not forever, but we have something to talk to these three specific areas that can fix a lot of these things. One of them is monotone. How do you fix monotone? Sir, what's that?
Structure and plan.
Okay, structure. But I can still be a great writer and then come and then read to the people and go, okay, tonight we're going to talk about Jordans as a piece of style to your wardrobe. So what do you think?
I mean, that's structure of that verb, but still structure your tone. So you like, okay, on the third sentence, yes, while I emphasize, if you have not go like go louder, then I'm not going to still, it's still structure of the speech.
Okay.
Not necessarily the words.
So structure of the actual like spoken speech. Yes. And do you know how you can fix this real easy? All of these things, by the way. Not our favorite answer. Well, sure. So you talk about something you like. Let's say you like your topic, but you're still a little monotone, and you have some slides, but you are known to read to your audience. How do we fix it? And what do we do when we practice? You record yourself. And I get students that come to the office and they say, I want to do this, I want to be better here, and I want to be this. And I say, take out your iPhone and let's practice. And they say, no, absolutely not. And so there's a level here of people who want to get better and mean it, and people who want to get better and do it. And so if you really want to level up, you do this painful thing here. Now, when I post this to YouTube sometime this week and I'm hearing myself, how many people hate the way you sound? Yeah, it's like, because in our heads, you know, I sound like James Earl Jones or like Morgan Freeman, like in my mind. And then I hear myself and it's like this cross between a couple of different people. I'm like, ugh. And you probably all feel the same way, right? Because you don't hear yourself externally. So if you want to avoid monotone, you practice like you mean it, which is hard to do because most people just run through their script on a plane and then they're like, and then they get there and then there's real people and they're like, ugh. And then the other thing is you record it and you flip that iPhone around, you do it, and you don't have to do the whole thing start to finish. How many people played piano? Parents made you play piano? It's not as pervasive as it used to. Remember Beethoven? You'd always go back to the beginning. You'd do the first 8 measures, And then you'd be real good at the intro, and then grandparents would come over and you play, and then you get to the first page and you'd be crappy. It's because you practice the first part over and over again. But what you should really do for your presentation is practice them in chunks. And if you're worried about messing up and things like that, think of the whole speech in 3 or 4 or 5 different chunks. And then you should have the general gist of each chunk. So like if you were to have the power go out completely and you had a PowerPoint deck, it shouldn't make a difference. If you had like an outline in front of you, or we're not going to use note cards in here because it's like the 8th grade student council election. So no, let's not use index cards unless it's one index card, but you're not going to do like this, right? But if you were, let's say, and you dropped them all and then a coyote came and scooped them up and took them that way, you should know that the first general idea about your presentation was X, and the second general presentation point was Y. And you could speak about it most eloquently as you can, as if you were having a beer with someone, and not this formal presentation that we still hang on to for some reason, yet no one gives anymore, realistic. What else makes a presentation boring? What do you think?
A bad topic that doesn't apply to us.
Okay, so writing here is make it applicable. So you want to make it apply to the actual audience. And this is harder than it sounds, because sometimes we think that our topic or our thesis or everyone at work is on board with the budget, or everyone at work is on board with the marketing plan. But we assume things about our audience that sometimes aren't actually true. And in the case of like speeches many of you have seen, because we've all come up through school, we've all been to college, whatever, you're in a biology class and you pulled like publicly transmitted diseases, which sounds really juicy in the like at the front end, right? But then you're supposed to hit this, 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 and this because that's what the teacher wanted. And then everyone's falling asleep because they're not seeing the value of, let's say, hand sanitizer, which is 99 cents. And you've got hand sanitizer to give to everybody. And it protects against the flu. And if you want to be at Christmas this year, you're going to sanitize, right? So like now you're putting it into a way that people can understand. The business kids come in and they're always like, well, I just got to sit through these 20-minute presentations. And I'm always like, why would you have a 20-minute presentation? But then you should make it applicable to the people. Okay, you're in an internship, you work at a restaurant, you work at a bar, you have a family, you're from a different country. Okay, so how does marketing affect all 6 of those different types of people? Well, they all have shoes. So we're going to take the marketing from the class and apply it to Reebok. And now, like, you can at least try and hit the international person, the family person, the worker at the bar, you know? So you want to try and make sure that you incorporate everybody. So there's 3 things I want to show you. We can fix all these problems, most of them, with 3 things. The first 2 are almost impossible to teach in one night. What's charisma? Ellie? No, Lizzie. Aaron, Lizzie. The way you hold yourself. Explain. What else is charisma? Google machine it. What else? Likability. Perhaps likability. But some people like Hitler might have had charisma, but we don't like Hitler. What else? Charm. Okay. But how do you can't teach charm? I mean, you could over time with like a charm coach. Can you imagine having a charm coach? Like, okay, give the person the flower now. You know, what? But what if yourself is boring?
So I didn't want to say this before because it's so like, I don't know,
just smile. Like some people just don't smile. And
Okay.
I think it's really important when you're speaking to smile.
Okay, smile. But if we look at charisma, a military leader could have charisma and not smile, right? So what, Google machine it, what is it? The ability to influence people? Maybe, but an actress might have charisma, but she's not trying to get you to listen to her show, you know, what else?
This is compelling, attractive charm that inspires devotion in others.
Devotion, I like charm, and that's getting people to do what you want. I like to think, yes, aura,
Yeah,
okay,
but also related, like you said,
it's relative.
it's related in the sense that that carries has to fit the audience. So you have to, like, for every audience, you have to work it out and fit into the audience.
And read the room, of course. Okay, here's how I think of charisma. I think of charisma as character because of the same root words, right? So can you have the character to get people to like you, to do what you want? Because you'll say she has charisma. There's a charisma about her. They're charismatic. A lot of people will say like Obama was a charismatic leader. Now, obviously, Obama has a filler problem, which is why he was the teleprompter king, scripted speeches. But he still had a charisma about him when he spoke to the people on his plane, the people in the city, the people, and he was able to he could just change environments really easily, from rich, wealthy white people all the way down to like inner city where he started in Chicago. He could just move about the character that he had in the different environments. So you're right, okay? Character and charisma are hard to teach. We can work on it. You can think about it. You could do one of those morning, they're so popular a couple years ago, like an affirmation podcast. One of those things to be a little bit more like outside of your comfort zone. But it's hard to talk about smiling and comfort and things like that without being overly cliche. So let's move down to dynamism. Now, the root word here is what? Dynamic. And dynamic usually means what? What's the Google machine on dynamic? Because we've got, dynamics of a car, you've got the dynamics of a sports team. So dynamic is a word that we use all in different places. But what's dynamism? What do you get?
Oh, sorry, that was.
Okay, what's dynamic?
Characterized by constant
Change,
change, activity, progress.
activity, or progress. What else? Positive in attitude, new ideas. Is that dynamism or dynamic? Dynamic. Did anybody do dynamism?
I have it now.
What is it?
The quality of being characterized by vigorous activity and progress.
Oh, vigorous activity and progress. I think the best way to think about this for our time and place right now is movement and being conscious of your movement. So dynamic. So when you think about like a BMW being dynamic, I don't know if you know this or not, when you look at a BMW, the creators of the paint and the side panels of the BMW have made them so they look like they're constantly in motion. So when you walk by a BMW and the sun hits it, it's supposed to look like it's in motion. That's dynamic. It's movement, it's change. We could say that the US government is dynamic. It's not wrong, but it's not dynamic like, let's say, a football team. It's real dynamic, right? The ball goes that way, they change the play, and they move on. How is dynamism, which is the speech term, what is it related to when it comes to the speaker? What do you think?
Being able to think on the spot and if anything changes, adapt.
Adaptability is what I would put, okay? Also hard to teach without practice. You walk into a room and there's no projector, are you a dynamic speaker? Now, obviously, there's a lot of different terms for this because that's sort of like adaptability. But dynamic, when we talk about she is a dynamic speaker, usually it's their ability to fluctuate and change their vocalics, which is these fillers and these overused phrases. Usually it's the ability to have eye contact. Looking at various people throughout the room is dynamism. Sure, it's character to smile or have facial expressions or not smile, but the ability to be a dynamic speaker means you move about and look at people. It's hard to teach dynamics because which part do you cut apart first? But what we do know is when we look at the things that you said that you don't like from boring presentations, they all are counterintuitive to dynamics. Reading to someone, not dynamic. Why? You could give a speech that would be a better email. You at home with your soda. What else? Yeah, teleprompter breaks what you can do. And remember that from the first day of class, all of that nonverbal communication is coming from your face. So if you are not looking, and this is Western, of course, and we're talking about American culture and whatever, but if you're not looking at the people, they're not feeling you being there with them. And that's that third wall that's really, really like they've got you separated. What else?
But yeah, also, I mean, it's known that it's static material to read. So there's no ability to read. You're speaking to us as an audience, which could change because for your
Right.
audience versus the audience you had yesterday or last night.
Yep.
So you know it's static material, therefore you won't feel connected, but it's not.
Yeah. And how cool is it when, okay, this is going to sound really cheesy and cliche, but you all know somebody who, when you speak to them, it makes you feel like you're the most important person in the exchange, whether it's a party or just one and two of you at the mall or something, but they really feel like you're listening. That's how a dynamic speaker with her audience, that's how they do. They make you feel like you're the first one, only time hearing that speech for the one and only thing. And it's why we see Zoom recordings, people are like, oh yeah, send me the recording, and you never watch it, things like that, which is what we're trying to do here, which is counterintuitive, I guess. It's also why I think it's cool when I teach a class, I don't use PowerPoint slides. I just say, it's like, okay, what are the problems that you guys want to tackle? Well, now let's hit those with solutions, rather than saying, well, these are the problems that are out there, but you can't plan for every problem right now if only you four are having a problem with your nursing or something like that. So yeah, absolutely. Now, the last one is the one that we can work on tonight, like immediately. And that is earnestness. What is the ability or art to be earnest? Purpose, what else? Sincerity. Earnest, the art or the ability to be earnest is to want to be there or to want to be in the situation you're in. You have the ability to change your speech situation. You have the ability to change your job. You have the ability to change your slides. You have the ability to change your voice, your movement. And for our presentations in here in 3 weeks, anything goes. Like if you want to use slides, great. We're going to have a one-nighter on that, real quick and dirty. But if you don't want to use slides and you want to use movement, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. If you want to start with a narrative and you want to tell a story, like we did our three-line stories on Monday, great. If you're a facts person and you want to start with some stats, 21%, what do you think that means? Blah, blah, blah. 46%, what do you think that means? This is the number of people who are in poverty in this country. Here's how we're going to fix it and why you should care. Fine. And then the next person gets up and they tell a story. They can make the exact same amount of change if they don't use slides, but they make you care about it. And that's the part that people don't understand, is when they say things like, well, send me the slides. Well, okay. If there's nobody there narrating the slides saying why you should care, then the slides don't mean anything. Now, some folks in the College of Business will say, well, slides for a pitch are important. Yeah, but what you're really sending them is a business plan or a mini business plan, or you're sending them a financial statement. In some cases, especially in 2022, you can just hand them a Google Doc with all of that information that they can pull up right on their phone. And you don't need to be reading them slides. You need to sell them a product. You need to make them like you. Because people buy from people they like. People don't buy products. They buy from people that they like. Okay? So earnestness is the one we can change immediately. Right now, you can pick a topic. You can make a topic likable. it's kind of like when I run up against teachers who are like, I hate teaching this thing. And I'm like, well, change it. And they're like, well, it's part of the curriculum. Yeah, but you can bring a different example in, you can bring a guest speaker in, you can take the students outside of the classroom, which is, we know more and more is what people want, to be doing the thing rather than hearing about the thing. So earnestness. So if we think about 3 things we can change right off the bat, earnestness is the one that's the easiest. Charisma and dynamism are hard to teach. What's another way you could start to think about charisma and dynamism? If you're not actually doing the thing, but you got a little bit of time on your treadmill every week, what could you do? You could watch other people. You could do 5-minute videos. You could do the TED Talk app on your phone. You could pick a podcast where they have different guests every week. You can do all sorts of things by watching other presenters, which I think is even in our class where we have our speech nights where we're going to have seven speakers, maybe 8 speakers. You're going to see how each person does something different. And maybe in your back of your mind, you're like, okay, in the next class, I want to try that thing. Like she started with a dark room, black slide. I'm going to try that. And then think about when you're outside of our class and our program, you're the only person in the room doing that. You level up and you look strong. So that's what we're trying to do, is make you think about ways to be more dynamic, more charismatic, and more earnest. The one thing I forgot to mention with space is this is really easy as a fix too. When you guys are a speaker, and obviously respect COVID and health and all that stuff, but look at the difference of like someone speaking here. Now I can probably get away with it because I can project and be kind of animated. But if you already have some of those things working against you, like you're a little bit more quiet and you're not used to moving around, where do you need to go? Here. And the closer you can get to your audience, the more they feel connected to you. This is called immediacy, by the way. So there's a guy called Moravian, and when he was doing his research in the 70s, they found that speakers who feel, not necessarily are physically, but feel closer to their speaker, audiences who feel closer to their speaker, tend to understand and to do and to listen more to what she has to say. So if you can create a closer feeling to your audience, then you will be perceived as more persuasive, dynamic, and charismatic. So what we'll see beginning speakers do, here's a great example. That conference that I told you about, the Florida Comma Conference, that's a really small conference. It's not small, but it's accessible. We'll sit people in a circle, we'll hear about your research. But the National Communication Association convention, thousands of people, ballrooms, Chicago Hyatt Atlanta, all that stuff, okay? You could walk into a ballroom to give your presentation where a wedding would be, and it might be 100 people. And then what they do at the Hilton or the Hyatt is they set up like these, kind of like a head table at like a big formal wedding. They'll set up like a table with like those table skirts on it and like the microphone and a podium and all these things, right? Well, what if your topic is a little bit more, let's say it's 8 a.m. People on a Friday, people all went out last night. So you have 20 participants. I kid you not, the speakers will still come in and they will still sit at that podium, that table, when all of their 20 listeners are like back there. And they keep this whole space between them and their audience. And what we'll do, like my team and me, my faculty, is we'll just like take the chairs and we'll put them down in front because we want to have a conversation with these people. You guys should do the same thing. So whenever you find yourself like in a crappy room and you'll see people go speak in that corner, I kid you not, if we had guest speakers in here, 9 out of 10 of them, if they're not like speaker people, they'll come in and they'll go straight to that corner. What's the problem with the way this room is set up in that corner? So when you have the podium, what's the next problem? You're in rows that aren't movable, but beautiful. So you can't see back there. What's the next problem?
Far away from the audience.
So it's physically far away. So there's 5 feet here, and then the podium is it's a thick sucker. It's like 3 feet, right? You know they have podiums now that are acrylic that you can see through. So that's a 3-foot podium. Okay. What's the next problem? The computer what? The monitor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jillian, what were you gonna say?
Well,
And okay, now you have the hearing issue. So if the person's not like grandiose or they can't project, so you have hearing. What else?
also, it's situated all the way over here. You need to be in the middle to be able to present to your whole entire audience.
That's right. So sorry about you guys, right? Because that's the furthest you can be. And we could go on and on with problems, but how do we solve the problems? That's the thing that you want to hear about. So the first thing you do is buy yourself a clicker from Amazon. We'll have clickers for our one and only presentation in our class, but buy yourself a clicker from Amazon, $20. You can have it forever. The second thing you can do is think about the logistics of the room. One of the things you can ask for is speakers to come forward, or you can come to them. All able by a clicker. What's another thing you can do? So we've got a clicker. If we have media, we have asked people to move around. You've moved around. What else?
They're really quiet.
You could ask for a microphone. You could ask for assistance. You could ask for volunteers. You could then write the speech better. Now, this is predicated on the idea that you know your room ahead of time. You guys all have a really great gift to you, is that we are all speaking more or less in ear for our presentations. And on campus, you generally have an idea of what a room looks like. If you're at a conference, what could you do?
Research ahead of time.
By
By
doing a flyby the night before, right? So you're coming into the hotel ballroom, you just went for drinks with your old friends, swing by the ballroom where you're presenting in the morning and be like, oh, it was a fun fact. This will be our last sort of story here. My colleague, Kristen Bolton, and I were going to Baltimore to receive, this is before COVID, a big award for our program from the National Communication Association. So we were asked to present about the communication and speech program at the University of Tampa. And so these people were going to come and they were going to listen to us talk about how we have great speech students and how we have speech contests and we have speech minors and programs and all this stuff. And we were coming in from dinner with friends on like Wednesday night or something. And we went by the ballroom and I brought my own projector from school because I wasn't certain if there was going to be projectors at the ballroom, and the host wasn't sure. And it was interesting because we got into the room, so we like meddled our way into the room, and there was what? What do you think the problem was? These are those ballrooms where they put like the movable walls up. What do you think the problem was for us?
Tables.
Not the tables. That could have been solved, I think, with a wall. There was no power. The one and only outlet was like next to the screen or something like that. And so then we had to figure out a CVS run to get like a extension cord, and CVS was closed because we were coming in from meeting friends. It was just this litany of problems that we had to solve, and we solved them. But imagine if you didn't do that flyby, and the next day, like you're in your suits and you're all ready to go, and you walk in and you have your own projector. You're like, I solved all these problems. There's going to be nobody stopping us presenting about our program. And then you get in there and there's no power. How do you talk about a speech program that's winning an award for being an excellent speech program, and then you are the guys with no power? So there's those things that they can happen, they will happen. So that's one of the things. Like if you can check out the room ahead of time, go ahead and do it. Okay, so what makes a boring presentation? Monotone. Reading. No movement. They don't like their topic. They haven't amended it for the audience. They don't want to be there. All these things boil down into three things we can call what? Charisma. Good. Right. Dynamism and earnestness. The first two are really difficult to teach because they have to do with characteristics and change. The third one you can teach really easily. Do you want to be there? No. If you don't, how can you fix it? And those things we can work on right now. And that's what we're going to work on next. Cool. So let's stop this.